Here are some book club meeting highlights from our discussions about Tender is the Flesh. Thank you guys for showing up. So glad you can make it. I'm so happy you guys could be here. I've been wanting to start a book club for so long. I tried to start one in the past and then everybody dropped out. So this is like a second attempt trying to start one. So I do want to thank you guys for actually participating. We're going to jump into the rules and I'm going to introduce the book. So, we'll talk about the book a little bit. But I do want everybody to just introduce themselves. So I'm going to go first. But when it's your turn, why don't you tell me your name, just so everybody here can get to know one another. Your name, your favorite horror or thriller book, and the last book you read. So, for instance, you know my name, Kiki Chiava. As far as a favorite book, a favorite horror book, I'm gonna go with horror. My favorite horror book is Let the Right One In. It is a hold on. It is a vampire horror story. Have you guys heard of that one?
Mm-mm.
So
I ain't never heard that.
they also have a film adaptation for it, and I would recommend both the film and the book. I've never seen the original Swedish film, but I have seen the American remake. I love that movie and I love the book. Um, and the last book I read was Nothing But Blackened Teeth. It's a short horror novella. It's a haunted house story. So tell me your name, your favorite horror or thriller book, and the last book you read. Who wants to go first?
I can go ahead.
Okay.
My name is Angel, and I will say my favorite horror book is Stephen King. I just think that book was just so well written, and the only thing I didn't like about the book, it was just so many pages. I don't know why Stephen King write
Oh
like
no.
that, but it took me like one to finish that book, but I finally finished it. But that's my favorite horror book. I really don't read other horror like authors. Most only horror like author I read is Stephen King. I mean, I'm trying to change that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, there's
And the
so
last
many,
book
girl. We gonna explore during this book club. Keep going.
I read, to be honest, I can't tell you because like once I started college, I haven't really been reading books like that.
Yeah, I understand that
There's
happens. When
so
I
much
went to school, I did not want to read any
info.
books.
So you know, I can't really think of the last book I read, to be honest.
Okay, Lindsay, what about you?
My favorite horror book was called Afraid. It was basically about like, to make a long story short, the government had made these soldiers. They like put these chips in their brain and made them like superhuman. And they
Mm-hmm.
went into this like small town, one row in, one row out, and was telling them that they won the lottery for everybody to meet at this like gym, the auditorium or the gymnasium of the town or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
each person was gonna come in and get a check. Girl, each person was going in that door and getting killed. It was like a body full of people, but they was looking for this one military man that was like, everybody in town thought he was crazy. Coming to find out, he knew a secret about the government. He had like footage. Girl, I was, when I say I read that book in like one day, but I was up, tears in my eyes and fear. Just,
Oh
I don't
gosh.
know, like, you know how the hair stand up on the back of your neck? Like if
Yep.
I'm scared, the hair don't stand up on my neck. Tears just start pouring. I'm not
Yeah.
crying. It's just that reaction. I was in that house. Boo! I wasn't even crying. It was just happening to me. When I tell you that's the scariest thing I ever read in my entire life,
Oh God.
and
Yeah.
I ain't read
I
a
want to
scary
read
book
that.
after that because it was like a thriller. Because it was like something that could really happen. I was terrified.
Those are the scariest stories. The ones, not the ones with like made up monsters. It's the ones with like killers and
Stuff that can
things that
happen. The
that can
government,
really happen. Those are the scariest
yeah.
ones.
Like especially the government scares me because they got so much agents. They could do whatever they want. It's nothing you could do if the government turn on you. So it's like, who's gonna believe this? story of this small town, but yo, it was good. They ended up, ended up. I can't even remember the ending because it was so long ago. But I tell you, after I read that book, I did not read another scary book for a long time. Girl, I was afraid. I was afraid as heck in my house, with all the lights on, so scared. But I could not stop reading it. It was so good. Like it was like one of the best books I ever read.
Yeah. What
But
was the last book you've read?
it's called Children of Blood and Bone, but it's by this Nigerian American. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically about how it's like black people, but they're like they got powers and stuff, but they can't use their power basically. And this one girl, she come to like basically save them. They call Majis. But
Okay. That book is on my TBR, Children of Blood and Bone. I want to read that. Up to page 53, which is chapter 10. So let's do a quick rundown. What's happening in the book so far? It's crazy so far. I got a list of questions. We're gonna be going through some stuff here. I'm really enjoying it.
Okay.
we're gonna dig deep because I got some stuff to say. But the first question I have here is, what are your first impressions of the book so far, or what have you noticed so far?
As I stated a little earlier, I thought it was kind of in the beginning. It was kind of slow. I think I'm used to because I'm like the genre that I mainly read is sci-fi and fiction
Mm-hmm.
and fantasy. So I'm used to it be like fast paced from the beginning. So it was kind of a slow burn, but when I slowly got into it and I was talking to my mother about it, it was by the second chapter it got me. I was like, okay, it's getting good. It's getting good.
Okay.
And it was and also I felt like it made me think like, can this actually happen to us? That's what constantly been going through my mind. The more I keep reading, the more how they describe them and how they try to change the wording again to make it seem like it's less than what it is. Like we're not eating humans, we eat special meat, and how they and what I did notice is how the wording of things is really important in this book
Yeah.
because if it wasn't worded in a certain way, it made it less than what it was. So it wasn't so, traumatic at the fact that they're actually eating human flesh.
Right.
So the wording was very important to the book, and I see that, and I understand why. Because if we're just out here just saying that we're eating human,
Yeah.
I
So
don't think.
when that was one of the first things that I noticed too, is that they put a lot of emphasis on the usage of words and how things were
Hmm.
worded. And so I took a lot of notes just on that alone about, because they kept mentioning it. It was something that was
Hmm.
it was something that was being repeated throughout the book. And so, the wording of something can change the meaning of it and how that thing is perceived. Just
Yeah.
by tweaking a few little words, it can change how that thing is perceived by other people. And they talked about this in the book, but also, just relating to real life outside of the book, in the book and in real life, the media, they mentioned that in the book as well, but the media does
Hmm.
this all the time. They
Right.
can sway public opinion based on how they phrase certain things. So
Right.
it had me thinking about like real actual events, news stories. Like there can be two people, for instance, who have committed the same crime. But let's say,
Hmm.
for instance, they are of two different races. The
Hmm.
media will use different words to describe each one of them, and
Yep.
it'll humanize one of them and it'll villainize the other
Yep.
to make it seem like one crime, or like one person is better than the other or something like that.
Hmm.
And we saw this. I took some examples. I have wrote it down. We saw this in the media, in the news, where, I don't know if you remember the story or if you heard of the story. There was a black woman who illegally sent her child to a school in a better district. And
Hmm.
then there was another story that came out about those white celebrities who bribed their children into college. And
Yep.
I was just like, if you go back and you put those side by side, you can see the differences in the wording that was used
Hmm.
in the media and in articles. And they did the same thing with Brock Turner, that boy that was accused of rape, and Cal Rittenhouse. They used words like promising young man, and they made it seem like they had such a bright future ahead of themselves, and that these were just mistakes that they made. But if it was somebody of a darker complexion, they would have used all types of negative wording. They would have called them a murderer. They would have called them a thug. They would have said they was a threat to society. So
Right.
this book put a lot of emphasis on how words have so much power.
Right.
It's crazy. I had pinned something on page 7, and it was so on page 7 the author went into like great detail about how the media can sway can sway the public, and um basically what this author was saying was that when the government and other organizations and whatnot were trying to convince people to that humans were okay to consume as meat, that they went and got people of notoriety to back their claims. They went and got experts, and to back their claim. And it's kind of like, we know from going to high school, and if you ever been to college, when you're writing like an essay, for instance, you can't just quote something or make a claim. You got to present evidence to back your claim. And so like these experts that they got, which we see this nowadays in society. If somebody says, let's say for instance, baby powder. Baby powder is bad for you, which we know now it is. Baby powder is bad for you. They'll go out and they'll get people, experts, scientists, whatever, to back their claim. And then they'll have documentaries about it. They'll have articles about it and news reports about it. But they'll have a professional, somebody of notoriety, an expert, to back up everything they're saying. What do you think of the main character, Marco, so far? He's interesting.
Yes. Oh, the part where I was like, okay, so his wife, he's separated from the wife, and not separated from her wife. She went to go live with her mother, and because of the death of their child.
Yeah.
And then he was with the butcher woman.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
you did not just cheat on your wife.
He seems like he's not really, like he doesn't really agree with the way society, the direction in which society is moving in, but he doesn't speak up against it either.
Yes. You can tell like he doesn't like what is happening in basically in the world now, and he's on the fence of it. And I believe the human in his barn or backyard is going to push him in the direction that I feel like he was already going. He wasn't for this.
What words would you use to describe the book so far?
I say interesting.
Yeah, I posted that on, I think, Facebook or Instagram earlier. I was like, this book is interesting. But like the first word, I wrote a word down when I was taking notes. The first word I wrote down was disturbing. It's disturbing in a lot of different ways, and disturbing and inhumane. Yes. But there was some things that happened in the story that remind me of slavery.
The whole breeding process.
When that European guy came to the plant and that other guy was showing him around, and he kept saying, "Oh, this is my stud." Basically, when he kept referring to him as a stud, it made me think of when white men used to refer to black men as bucks, and they would put them out on display and be like, "Oh, look, he's a fine buck. He's strong. Look how strong he is. He'll work. You won't have no trouble out of this buck." And so, and then when they was talking about, "Oh, we want dark meat," and they was like, "Oh, we going to Africa to see." Immediately, I started thinking about the slave trade. I was like, I mean, because they are killing white people too. But the way some of the things that they're doing, and they even in the book they mentioned it. What's the name had mentioned something sarcastically, and he was like, how people say they basically think that what they're doing to humans now isn't barbaric, but they said that slavery is barbaric, and I'm like
that the people use it as slaves, and would they end up eating them? The people that got in trouble for keeping some of the meat as slaves and ended up eating them.
Yeah, so slavery is barbaric, but what you guys doing is not.
It's not. That's
it's crazy. And the whole going back to the whole slave thing, it made me think about something else. I think I wrote it down. I looked at it. Not it was the wording and
Mm-hmm.
it was the wording and the whole slave thing. How I looked at it as kind of like how people look at the Bible, how the Bible can be interpreted in many different ways, and how people will interpret the Bible to fit their narrative or their
Mm-hmm.
decisions or the reasoning behind something that they're doing or something they believe in, no matter how good or bad it is. So, like, people have used the Bible to justify slavery. And they haven't mentioned the Bible yet in this story. I don't know if it's going to have any religious context, but it just made me think about that, how people will use certain things, certain words, back to wording, in such a way to help interpret their reasoning behind, this whole human consumption thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's crazy how people can twist things just to make it fit their narrative.
Right.
And then it's so inhumane the way they're treating these people, like the whole cutting off the arms. That
Yeah.
part, I had to put the book down when they was like the pregnant
Mm.
the pregnant ones that they breed.
Yeah.
They cut off their arms and cut off their legs so they can't kill the baby.
Baby.
They can't
Yeah.
escape. And it's like, that's just like what they did in slavery. When you tried to run away, they cut off your foot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the shit is disturbing.
It
it
is.
It's crazy. I mean, but it's opening my mind to things that I have thought about before, but it's making me think about the meat that we consume, like animals, because they have feelings,
Yes.
and it's making me think like I'm never gonna look at a piece of steak or a piece of chicken the same again.
Whoa.
They basically like animals. They took away their
Mm-hmm.
vocal cords. They don't put
Oh
clothes on
yeah.
them, and I mean, but you can tell that they still have some sense of being a human. Otherwise, the pregnant women wouldn't try to kill their babies. They kill it. They're trying to kill their
Right.
babies because they don't want their babies born into this world to be tortured like they have. So they still have some sense up here
Yeah.
to know right from wrong. They know they don't want their kids to go through that. So, but they've treated them so much like animals. It's so
Mm-hmm.
easy for them to look at them as not human and mistreat them, especially when they don't even refer to them as humans. Like, it's easier to
Yeah.
mistreat a person when you refuse to acknowledge them as a fucking human being.
Right.
All right. We're gonna play a game.
Okay.
We're gonna play two truths and a lie, but we're gonna make it book related. So
Okay.
I'm gonna say 3 things about myself that's related to books or the world of literature, whatever. And then you got to figure out which one is the lie.
Okay.
All right. So let me see. I think I wrote mine down. Yeah. I own over 700 books. I DNF'd the book Goliath by Tochi Adabuchi. And I hated the book The Mist by Stephen King. Which one is the lie?
I hated the book by Stephen King, The Mist. I believe that's the lie. I believe you do have 700 books. I believe that. And I know you like Stephen King, so to say you don't like The Mist, even though I did not like The Mist, I
Really?
think that's the lie. I did not like. I was so. Oh, I can't. I get into a whole thing when I talk about The Mist. I can't.
The
I
movie
do
or
not
the
like that.
book?
The movie.
It's
And then
that
someone told
ending.
me
It's
to
that
read the
ending.
book. Yeah, someone told me to read the book, and I feel like if I read a book and it makes me equally upset, I'm gonna be really mad.
So I
But I
actually
did not.
I actually love The Mist. I love the book. So that one was the
I
lie.
know it.
I love that book because I love Stephen King. But yeah, that ending in the Mist movie, that was hard. That was hard.
It got me so angry. I was like, "Oh, you did all that."
I felt like they gave up too quickly. Like,
They did.
so we ran
They
out of gas, so we
did.
just gonna give up and kill ourselves? No, we about to run, hide in the woods, gonna try to survive. Like, the fuck you
Listen,
mean?
exactly.
I'm
They
not
just
about to
gave
give
up
up
so
this
quick.
easily. Mm-mm.
It was like wasn't it like within a day of
Yes.
everything?
And see, Stephen
Oh.
King's ending, I'm not going to spoil the ending for you because you haven't read the book yet, but the book
Mm-mm.
ending is different than the movie.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's all I need
So
to know. All
you
right.
might like it a little bit more than the movie if you didn't like the movie's ending.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. I'm gonna get the list. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. What's your two truths and a lie?
Okay. I gotta think. I can't. Let's see. Um, my favorite book is called The Fledgling by Octavia Butler. Let's see. I do not own any books, and I didn't like Sister Soldier's latest book. There you go.
I'm gonna say the lie is I do not own any books. Is that the lie?
Yes.
Okay. You have to say you have to own at least one book.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to see the number of books, but I think I have about 20
Okay.
books total. I don't have a lot, but I have like 20 that I have bought. But yeah.
I gotta do a recount. I know I got over 700 right now,
Oh, I know you do.
but I gotta do a recount.
I wish to get to that boat, but I just don't have nowhere to put my books, so I don't buy
I
any
got a
new ones.
small apartment, girl. I have to stop buying books. I'm telling you, any place where books can fit, that's where they are. I got books inside the TV stand. I got books in the dresser. It's crazy. Our outro question is, why do you read horror or thriller books?
This is like this is probably like the second book I read that was considered horror thriller. I don't really normally read horror or thriller, so my answer is I wanted to try a new genre that I haven't tried before.
Okay, cool. I was thinking about, I didn't even write down the answer for this one because I like to write down everything that I think I'm going to say. And I didn't write down an answer for this one because I'm like, why do I read horror books? But, as long as I can remember, I have enjoyed like scary movies. And then
Mm,
I got into scary, horror books. And I just feel like horror doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. Like a lot of times, horror movies don't even get, you know, recognition like at award shows, or they
hmm
get looked over a lot. And so, there are a lot of great performances that actors have done in horror movies. Um, and they just don't, people look at horror like that's not real cinema. And I feel the same
Right.
thing about horror books. Like people look at horror books like that's not real literature. And there's a lot to be learned in horror books. As you can see, like we had a whole conversation here about this fucking book and like the things that are happening. Like, and the
Mm,
same thing, like when by Stephen King books, I tell people this all the time, that because some people are scared to read Stephen King books and stuff like that. But Stephen King never referred to himself as a horror writer. That was something that the community, that's a label that the community society put
okay.
on him. Because a lot of his books aren't even horror, but there are a lot of deeper messages within his horror books, that can
hmm
be explored. Like he does a great job at like human, like exploring the differences between monsters and humans and who are the real monsters. Like in that movie The Mist, we knew
Right.
that it was monsters outside, but the people in the grocery store were the real
Yep.
monsters. They was the one
Yep.
doing the crazy shit. Like, and so that's a lot of, you can have a lot of deep conversations about stuff like that. And I feel like it's a lot of that in horror, but people don't recognize it because they feel like it's not real literature. It's not real cinema. I know, for as long as I can remember, I just enjoyed being scared. Like that's why people go to like haunted houses and stuff. It's like they enjoy being scared. But most of the time when I'm reading a horror book, most of the time, I'm not gonna say all the time, but a lot of the times I'm not even like really like petrified. I'm really just enjoying the story. I don't know. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like horror offers some good storytelling. I do read other genres, but horror is my favorite. And I can't even like, like when you love something so much and you don't even know why. I just do.